One.
This is our last day here at Victoria Falls Elephant Hills Hotel, and we're just catching up on what has been happening a lot at the Innovation Africa Digital Summit, IAD Victoria Falls. And today we have the brains, the organizers, and the people who have been running with this vision for the past 13 years. We are so much honored to have Adrian, the Executive Director with Extensia. Say, thank you so much for taking your time here.
Thank you.
I understand you've been with Extensia, you've been running this. This is here in Zimbabwe. This is the 13th session of IAD Digital Summit. You have managed to be in this journey the past 13 years. But just before we jump quickly into that, what is Extensia? What are you all about? And how have you managed to come up with this whole idea of the Innovation Africa Digital Summit?
To explain Extensia, we, as you said, been organising the events for 13 years, but as with Starbucks, realised they don't sell coffee, they sell an experience. We realised we don't organise events, but we support the development of telecoms and ICT in Africa. So any decision we make about locating the event or about the content and the themes of the summit, it follows the progression of the industry, but also leads the progression of the industry in terms of what needs to happen next. So over 13 years, as you know, with telecoms and ICT, there's been huge developments from the original fixed line operators through to the mobile operators, through to the satellite infrastructure, the cables landing from undersea, bringing the connectivity into Africa. So this year's IAD Summit focuses on affordable access, recognising that infrastructure is starting to go into place, recognising that there are developments with OTT service providers like the Googles and the Facebooks and the others who are coming in over the top of the service providers. So we need to look at how all of these services can be delivered in a more affordable way by bringing all of the stakeholders, the policymakers, the regulators, the service providers, the infrastructure providers, bring them all together. Don't just focus on one silo.
And this, for Zimbabwe, this comes almost like at the most appropriate time where by our own government, the ICT minister also has been heavily advocating for price slash as far as making sure that internet becomes very accessible. And we've got various players like Zoll. I think they've also been speaking a lot of making the internet being a right. This comes at the right time for us. But I've just been thinking, when did you start this? When was the first session for the IAD? Where was this? I just want to understand the journey that you've managed to traverse till we're here.
So the first IAD Summit, and back then it was called the Digital Africa Summit, was in Ghana, and obviously 13 years ago. Since then the event's been in Egypt, it's been in South Africa, it's been in Uganda, it's been in Kenya, it's been in Ethiopia, it's been in the Gambia, and sometimes it's been more than once in those places, sometimes it's been there once and then we've moved on. But because the summit, when we choose the location for the summit, it's about looking at which country will benefit from hosting the summit, which country is making some important developments in ICT, and so therefore justifies hosting the summit, and the summit helps to boost those development objectives. So you've seen here at this particular summit that there's a number of initiatives by the government, and your new Minister for ICT we've seen is a very enthusiastic and energetic minister who's driving the agenda. Definitely. And with Zimbabwe now being the chair for African Union and for SADC, the time was absolutely right to bring the event to Zimbabwe, recognise the developments in the e-schools initiatives, looking at the developments in the digital villages initiatives taking place here. And in association with organising the event, we also helped to develop a service and a product and a platform called eNava, which was launched during the summit, which you may have seen, which is a platform on cloud for delivering school services and enabling schools to, where they're digitised, to be able to make all of their services available, make access to the breadth of the internet available to students so that they can access resources more effectively, drive innovation, improve efficiencies and costs, etc. So Zimbabwe is the perfect host for this year's event.
You answered the question, because I was wondering why did you have IAD Summit 2015 specifically here in Zimbabwe? What made you choose? What made you decide that Zimbabwe is going to be the best destination for such a summit?
Sure.
Yeah. Then overall, we also want to understand that the objectives for Extensia and what are your targeted objectives? What do you hope that this would then achieve in the long to short term?
So the way we've evolved our service, we've extended a new service called Extensia Bridge, which supports governments, regulators, all our clients that attend the summit. So the way we explain very simply, the summit brings together the industry leaders, leading thought processes, and it brings that melting pot of people who are looking at key issues from different perspectives. And what that does is it enables people to see new agendas. It helps them to know what they want to do and then see how they can possibly do it and how it's being done elsewhere. But the Extensia Bridge service, which is the follow-on service where as a government where you've seen your mind's been opened and your agenda becomes clearer for you because you know what's available, then we will support in terms of finding the solutions that will help you to achieve your objectives, whether they be infrastructure solutions, financing and investment, whether it would be on consultancy on further developing the concepts. And so we work very closely with the governments and with the solution provider market that we already have very good relations with to make sure that we bring the two together in the most effective way.
Okay, taking some few points from the ICT minister's speech in his closing remarks yesterday. He was also speaking about, more of an African syndrome, or a perception that Africans would rather enjoy to sit, have a meeting, how about a meeting, and then the next time they meet, they're also meeting, how about the meeting that they had last time. We are also a technology journalists from a Zimbabwean perspective. We want to also understand, do we have any tangible results that we should expect from such a convention, from such a summit? I understand that we have about 38 countries that also came here and representatives. What do we have anything that we should expect at any national level, short to long term, after this kind of a gathering?
The biggest outcome from this particular summit has been the INAVA project, which, as I mentioned to you, is a result of hosting the summit in Zimbabwe, in discussions with the ministry, recognising the connectivity to the schools, recognising that connectivity should have a purpose. It's great that schools are connected, but then what? So by creating the cloud platform that supports that connectivity and enabling that to develop not just the functions of operations and those things that can be made smoother through using the internet, but there's also an e-commerce platform involved in that, and the evolution of that is towards a cashless society where within the INAVA family you can make payments, you can sell goods online, you can make orders online, so it will improve from an economic perspective as well as from a social perspective, starting in Zimbabwe. This is a Zimbabwe-led initiative as a result of the IAD Summit, which will already, as a result of the workshops and the advisory clinics that took place, and open people's minds as to what the possibility is with this cloud platform. We've been approached already by the government saying we need to bring this to our country as well. So putting Zimbabwe as the country that's really, by hosting the IAD Summit, connecting the concept of the digitization of the schools with what we were able to bring with a cloud platform and e-commerce application, we will see this develop across Africa.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, how probably maybe just check you back in the past few years. How can you measure, or do you have any benefits that you can say have been achieved from other various countries that you've managed to have?
Absolutely. We always look for a legacy for hosting the IAD Summit. It's not just a trade show, it's not just a commercial event, it's a partnership with the host government. And the reason we choose the host government is because they have a specific objective. So in the Gambia, we were able to drive connectivity in the universities, and we were able to get some of the major universities connected directly by a donation from some of our solution providers who were attending the summit, who saw the need in the education sector and actually stood up during the event and made a promise to connect the university, and that was actually done within a few months of hosting the summit. In Ethiopia, they were building the ICT park on the outskirts of Addis. ICT parks are great if they've got tenants. You need the big international companies to come in and set up their offices. So by hosting the IAD Summit, Ethiopia was able to bring some of the bigger international companies into Ethiopia to fill the space in the IT park. In Uganda, there was the time when they were building the national backbone, the fibre backbone, and by bringing the summit to Uganda, that enabled them to meet with the right people who could provide the infrastructure and drive that development plans. And ultimately, with any country that hosts the event, on top of specific initiatives, it also enables a large portion of the key stakeholders from the country to be able to see the best practices and to be able to access the knowledge base that you've seen over the last 3 days of the summit, take advantage of those meetings. So lots of value comes out for the host country.
Yeah, we saw a national, serious national uptake in the response to this event. I think where almost every operator was here present. I also want to understand from your perspective or from your side and angle, how it has been. It looks like you've managed to work with various governments, but how has been the response, especially because you are a private institution working with various government institutions? How does the government respond to such private initiatives coming from private players working with the government? How has been the response, and how has it been for you?
Very strong response. So one of the main things when we choose the location for the event is we partner with the host government. We have an agreement with them that they will invest in the summit and assist us by making sure that the key players from the country are involved. They make a solid investment in terms of the delivery of the event and supporting the attendees. So knowing what the benefits to the country are, we always get a very strong response from the host government and a strong partnership with them. We don't organise the event just from an Extensia perspective. It's an Extensia in partnership with the host government perspective. And while we host the event, we are always approached by other governments saying, can we bring this? We need this event in our country. So then we make the assessment process, which is what we will be doing when we return from Zimbabwe, to see where will we host 2016 IAD, and we always leave it until after the summit.
Do you already have an answer for the next 2016 yet?
No.
Okay, it's not yet out there.
We make the assessment, we are approached by a number of governments, we see sometimes, a government will approach and ask us to host the event. Sometimes we will say to them, maybe hosting the event is not the right thing for you to do. If we understand your objectives, we can help you with the Extensia Bridge initiative, where we can look for solutions for you, we can introduce you to certain people. If hosting the event is the right thing to do, then let's look at that as well. But we balance and we consult with the governments to see what would be the best option to help them.
With your experience, looking at this from a Zimbabwean perspective, what I understand you've been going through other countries. What do you see are the opportunities for Zimbabwe? What do you, from your own perspective, what's your advice? Where do you see us going in? What are the opportunities basically can you see that those which we need to tap into and those that we should have tapped into, and you know, any other areas. I understand you've been in this business for a long time. Maybe as a form of an advice, what do you think Zimbabwe needs to be doing or should have done, or has to urgently, or maybe in the long to short term also should make sure that it's just implementing some of your fundamental issues?
I think that, well, again, another reason why we choose a location is because with every country, and bear in mind we're from the UK, so we're very much aware that from outside of Africa there's a perception of countries in Africa, and in any of the countries we've hosted the event, there's an external perception from the international business community, and Zimbabwe is exactly the same. What the IAD Summit is, it exposes the international market to the reality on the ground rather than the perception and the preconceptions that international companies and the international community have. So people have been here, they've experienced Zimbabwe and the fantastic Victoria Falls and all of the great scenery, the fantastic welcome that we've received from all of the local people, and to have the Vice President of the country actually come to the summit, make that commitment to come to the summit, which isn't in the main city where, you know,
it's a lot of commitments.
He had to fly especially and that commitment, that demonstration that, look guys, we're here, we do business in Zimbabwe, we take this seriously, ICT is important to this country. All of the operators were here at the top levels. The government was here with all of the senior executives, and the commitment shown by Zimbabwe left people with no doubt. This is a place where they want to do business, they want to improve the ICT infrastructure, they want to make the developments that will support the growth of the country through the development of ICT.
But then quickly, to me, it quickly brings a question, especially with perceptive issues, perceptions from the United Kingdom to African countries, especially Zimbabwe, issues of sanctions and all that. How do you see these relations improving or working better, especially when you do hold events from companies like you and they're this successful? Do you think this changes perceptions?
It definitely does. It certainly does. As far as I'm aware, there aren't sanctions against Zimbabwe from the UK anyway. It's just perceptions of, can we do business there? Who do we speak to? How do we get to speak to the right people? How do we do business in Zimbabwe? We have a community with the IAD Summit. After 13 years, I would say 2/3 of the people always attend, or always have representatives that attend the summit. So they come wherever we host the summit, they'll come. We have the other third will be new people that haven't been before, and they'll be interested in the country where it's being hosted. But people will come because it's the IAD Summit. And if it's in Zimbabwe, then they'll come to Zimbabwe and they'll see what the opportunities are and what Zimbabwe has done here.
So do we have any international response, especially from the European market, also coming through to say we want to be part and parcel of the IAD Summit, we want to see what's happening in Zimbabwe, and specifically like this summit? Did we have any response from the European community to say what's happening, or is all centralized in the African market? No, we just have African countries just coming through.
You had, with the attendees at the event, you had, as you said, I think it was about 38 countries.
Yes.
I think 24 of those were African, which means that you had 14 international countries represented. Okay. Countries from across the world.
On statistics.
No, exactly.
That's impressive.
And this is what's important, and that's why countries want to host the IAD Summit, because they want to say, look guys, we're here, we do business. What Zimbabwe has done here by bringing all of the top people and showing that commitment to the international community, it's opened eyes, and I've seen business already starting to shape up and take place during the meetings at the event.
Definitely.
From the attendees, from the vendor community, from the investment community. Your minister's fantastic. He unprecedented, unprecedented, stood and said, guys, I'm here for 2 days. Come and see me.
Come and see me. Let's see what we're going to be talking about. Let's strike deals with it.
Let's do business.
Exactly, yeah.
That's what we need. That's the exposure Zimbabwe needs, it's the exposure any country needs to say, we are here, we do business. But that's, if we break down barriers with the IAD Summit, because it has the community, and I think the results for Zimbabwe will be fantastic. We, as Extensia, have made a strong commitment to come back to Zimbabwe very soon to start looking at what developments you have in the country that we can help source solutions for, and we can help bring the solutions market, the investors, the contributors to the development, and the consultants who can help the growth of the country, to see how we can bring those and who we should bring those to. So we'll be back very soon, not with the event this time, but with ourselves, to see how do we take this forward, how do we drive now. INAVA has been launched by the Vice President of the country, so now we have to push that agenda. We have to go past what you were saying, where people like to talk. That's not just an African trait, by the way, that happens everywhere. People love talking, and people love to have meetings about meetings, but we want to do business. We're here to do business.
That means then you then get to have time to actually make some follow-ups on last pitched ideas and possibilities to make follow-ups to say how far is this managed to proceed and all that.
Absolutely. We have, alongside sponsors and such like at the event, we have Extensia Bridge partners who you've seen hosting advisory clinics at the event. Their agendas were full of meetings, and many with Zimbabwean representatives. So after this event, we'll assess with them, with those partners, who they met, what they discussed, and how can we take that forward, and we'll help them to continue those discussions so that they don't just become a nice conversation, but they translate into business and they work in the best way.
And for Extensia, I'm just thinking, it's definitely it's a good move. The results are obvious, but what's in it for Extensia? You know, there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of activity that you've been doing, and you've been in this business for 13 years, and it's coming with a lot of things involved, costs and all that. But what's in it for Extensia?
It's quite simple. We're a commercial company. We look for financial gain, but we think financial gain comes as a consequence of doing a good job. So with the advisory clinic partners, helping them to do business deals, then we get a referral fee through that process, which means that if they do business, we do business. If the government gets a solution, from a government perspective, we provide that service free of charge. Any government can come to us and say, we want a data centre, we want a national broadband rollout, we want whatever it might be. We need to develop our e-government processes, we need training, we need investment. We will go source the solutions with the international market, which we know very well. We know the people in the companies. We bring them to the solution, to the procurement function of the government. And if the government chooses that company, then we get the referral fee, the government gets the service free of charge, and the solution provider gets business that they didn't know was out there in the market. So it's very simple. We think of it as a paperclip kind of a solution. You know, everybody benefits, and so it just makes sense. So.
Interesting. I think you've basically managed to just answer most of the questions I really wanted to understand. I think maybe this one goes out to our viewers. The future of IAD Summit. You are the brainchild. You are the visionaries behind this, where you are taking. I think maybe just before we close this short interview, you can speak to our viewers on where we are going with IAD and what you hope to see from this initiative.
Thank you. And so with future IAD Summits, we're planning now for where the next IAD Summit will be. We won't plan the agenda at this time because the